What is the best strategy for avoiding long-term stress? None of us want long-term stress, and if you feel like that's been building for years, I want to help you eliminate that today. And if you haven't felt long-term stress for years, I want to help you prevent it, because I have a 3-step framework that you can repeat over and over and over, and that's what I plan to show you today in this video. In the past, I used to feel a lot of long-term stress, and I didn't have this 3-step framework to help me. I would run into a wall over and over and over, and I could never move through it. I could maybe do step 1, but not 2 and 3 and make a meaningful change. So with that being said, I promise you, by the end of this video, you will be armed with a strategy that you can apply in the future for every single piece of stress that you have. With that being said, my name is Richardson. I'm a coach here at Life on Your Terms, and I make these videos to pass on my experience, to pass on my knowledge, so you can learn these lessons quicker than I ever could. The first step in the process is going to be to find the source. I think a lot of us can be stressed out at times and we feel the symptoms and we just try to alleviate the symptoms, however it is. But it's crucial that you go and find the source, because when you find the source, you can then change it permanently. And we'll get into that later. But the first thing is to find the source. And I want you to understand that not all stress is bad. So for me, an example of this is I have a quarterly set of hours that I like to work. So what I mean is, for a quarterly objective, I set the amount of hours I want to work per week. And so towards the end of the week, if I'm not at that bar, I do get stressed. And I see that as good stress. Bad stress is when it starts to take over function, whether that's cognitive function, you just can't let something go and the stress won't go away. Whether it's bodily function, you can't sleep, stuff like that. That is the bad stress. So you want to find the source of where that's coming from. Is it your job? Is it your relationship? Is it your health? Is it your resources? Whatever it is. And so I could tell you all the hacks, and I'm going to tell you the hacks later, but I want you to focus on finding the stress source first. And an easy way to do this is you can take the balance wheel, because the balance wheel lays out your life in a pie. And the cool thing about the balance wheel is maybe physical health is a source of your stress, but you think it's professional health. You may rate your professional health, you think 7 out of 10, you're like, it's not my professional world. And then you get to your physical health and it's like a 3 out of 10. You're like, oh my gosh, I bet a lot of these physical health manifestations are showing up in my professional world, but really it's my physical health I'm stressed about. So that's cool. So that's gonna help you find the source. You can do that at the end of the video. So first is to dig in and find the source, because sometimes we don't even realize we are stressed, but we have the symptoms of it. So as I said, that maybe you have bodily function. For me, when I'm really stressed, I tend to not be able to sleep. I've had that in the past, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really stressed, or I just can't let it go. I'm a worry bug. And so those things are symptoms of stress. And if I don't find the source, I cannot get rid of those and eliminate those. So sometimes you don't even know you're stressed, but you want to look for those symptoms, whether it's fatigue, whether that's lack of hunger, whether you can't sleep, look for those things. And then on top of that, another little tip when finding the source is typically it is in the things that you are avoiding. It's the relationship you won't end. It's the job you won't quit. It's the money you won't stop spending. It's one of those 3 things that you're just avoiding. And you know it's a problem, but you kind of write it off or push it under the rug. But then you see the physical manifestations of the stress through the symptoms. And it's important for you to know that it is typically in the things you're avoiding, whether it's the work you're avoiding, whether it's the relationship, whether it's the hard conversation. Look there first, and that can help you find the source. So the second step is the action that you need to take. So a lot of times people skip over the first step and they just go to action, but then they're not taking the right actions to alleviate the source of stress. So that's why we do step number 1. The step number 2 is the action you need to take, and you want to create a plan. So what you can do is you find the source, and then you're feeling all these symptoms, and this is where you're at. Then you ask yourself the question, what does amazing look like in this area? And that'll take you to here. And then everything in between is the plan of action that you need to take to lower that stress. So we can go back to the physical health example because it's really tangible and easy to understand. So let's say your physical health is a 3 out of 10. And it's this way because you're 50 pounds overweight, you're not sleeping, you're not eating good food. Well, amazing would look like getting that 50 pounds off, sleeping 8 hours a night, and eating a well-balanced diet of foods that give you energy and make you feel good. So then you have where you are, you have where you want to go, and all this action that needs to be taken in between. And by taking this action, you will see your stress drop. Because as you go from a 3 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10, because you've lost the first 5 pounds, you've started eating healthier foods, you'll start to feel better and better, and you'll feel that stress drop. So that's what you do, is you find the source. You then ask yourself the question, what does amazing look like in this area? So maybe it's your relationship with your friends or whatever. They just don't give you the value. Maybe they shit talk a lot of people. They don't talk about big ideas. They're not into business, whatever. You take out where you are, what would amazing look like with your friends, and then all that action you need to take in between to find those type of people, and then slowly you'll start to feel better about it. So that's gonna be the first step, is find the plan that you need to take. After you do that, you can then pair this with techniques to calm it in the short term. So finding the source and then creating that action plan is kind of your long-term plan to eliminate the stress so you don't have that long-term stress. But it can feel good in the short term to have short-term hacks to get rid of the stress. And these are some of the things that I do for that. I use breathing exercises. I like to do the square breathing technique, 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 second exhale, and a 4 second hold. On top of that, I like to use mindfulness. I like to sit outside, look around me, only focus on what is in the present. I like to use meditation to think about some of these problems, maybe find my plan that I'm going to think about, focus on my breathing. I like physical activity. That's one of my favorite stress relievers in the short term. Go to the gym, hit a hard lift, put in some good music, don't think about it, get through it, and I feel a lot better. And on top of that, another great one is an ice bath. And the reason I like ice baths is because number one, it makes you use breathing. Number two, it makes you be mindful because the water is so cold, you don't want to be in it. And number three, you're gonna feel an increase in happiness after you get out of the ice bath for the rest of the day. And anecdotally, I can tell you that I feel that, and studies show that. So you can take any of those. Again, breathing, mindfulness, meditation, physical activity, or ice bath are 5 easy hacks that you can use to help you move through some of this stress in the short term. Now, on top of that, if you feel depressed related to this, maybe you're stressed and you feel sad, you feel depressed. If you feel depressed, that is a metric for you to understand that you have a lack of perceived options. So with your relationships with your friends, let's say, if you feel sad or depressed related to that, it's because you have a lack of perceived options around new friendships. And if you feel anxious, it's because you have too many options. So maybe you have your friends and you just don't know how to handle it. So you have too many options, or you have too many different areas where you could go to find new friends. So that's an easy hack. If you're depressed, you have a lack of perceived options. And if you're anxious, you have too many perceived options. So for depression, you need to increase your options. Anxiety, you need to decrease your options. So the third and the final piece is after you've identified the source, you've set a plan for action, started using some of those stress relieving techniques, it's time to learn the lesson once and grow from it. So what I mean by this is reflect on the past experiences you've had when you've been really stressed out. So maybe it's your physical health. Maybe you get through that time. Or like, okay, I went from the 3 out of 10, now I'm at an 8 out of 10 and I'm feeling real good. The thing is, once you're at the 8 out of 10, I want you to reflect back and look back like, okay, this is what it was like when I was at 3 out of 10. This is how much I hated it, and I'm not gonna ever let it get there again. Because I think a lot of people have these life cycles where they might go to a 2 out of 10 and they get up to a 6 out of 10 and they drop it back down to a 2 out of 10, and it's whatever they accept. So you have to be able to reflect on that experience, then raise your bar to that 8 out of 10 physical health minimum so you never drop down to that 3 out of 10 again. So you want to reflect on the experience and ask yourself, what did you learn? And then once you've figured out what you've learned, you want to apply your learned lessons, whether that's with money, relationships, your health, whatever it may be. Once you've learned the lesson in that area related to the stress, you want to keep that close to you and make sure you never make that mistake again. Obviously, if you do, don't be too hard on yourself because that's going to happen. But if you can focus on just learning the lesson once, you then can focus on growing in other areas. Now, the final thing, what I want to leave you with is, again, stress isn't always bad. Sometimes it is a good thing, and if you can see it as a good thing, that is a stress relieving technique in and of itself. But like I said, if it affects bodily function, if it's really owning your life, that is bad stress. But a little bit of stress to get you going is a good thing. And it is an opportunity for growth. It is an opportunity for you to rise to the occasion. For me, it's like when I go hit a heavy lift. It's like when I hit that lift, before I hit it, I do have a little stress. I'm like a little hyped up. or when I need to hit my hours for the week. I'm a little bit hyped up towards the end of the week, and that is the good stress, the opportunity for me to grow and me rising to the occasion. If you like this video, take that balance wheel now, because it can be really helpful in understanding your long-term stress. And on top of that, if you will comment about what you liked in this video, it's really helpful for me to understand, and I will make more of them.